Hello, it's been quite a couple of weeks. I've been trying to get this video done for a couple of weeks now, and it's just been, the weather has not been cooperating with me. We've been having snowstorm after snowstorm, and when the snows come in, these really heavy snows that we haven't had in a while, there's a lot of downed trees that take out the power lines. The power goes out. I can't record. Oh, well, I'll do it next week. Snowstorm comes again. You get the idea. So we've got a break in storms. There's supposed to be more coming this week. But I have electricity and I have warm. So I'm here in the garage because it's really cold outside. And I'm going to talk to you about my permaculture project. My wife and I moved to this particular piece of ground about 20 years ago with our two then very young sons. I think one was 10 and the other was 7. We wanted to get out of Los Angeles where we used to live. We just didn't like the city life. We didn't like all the stop signs and the congestion and the huge numbers of people and all of that. We wanted to slow down a little bit and let the kids play in the creek and climb the trees and that kind of thing. So we had purchased this piece of land. Previously, we were going to use this as a kind of a vacation home. And when things weren't really feeling good about life in Los Angeles, we just said, hey, let's just move. So we came up here. We're about 3-hour car drive east of San Francisco. It's that direction to get there. We're in the Sierra foothills, about 2,500 foot elevation. It gets very warm here in the summer and it gets very cold here in the winter. By very cold, I know there's lots of people in lots of places, but here very cold means single digits. I haven't seen it below 0 yet. I've seen it 7, 8, 9 degrees. This land originally, before white people came, was Miwok Indian territory. Miwok Native American tribe lived here. They took care of the land very well, lived amongst nature, eating the plants and the animals. Around 1849, something happened to change all that. About 40 miles to the north of us, John Sutter discovered gold in a creek. And once that word got out, people from all over the world came and just inundated this land looking for their fortunes, they were going to discover gold. Gold was just laying in the creeks. You could just pick it up. There's still gold in the creeks, but you got to work really, really hard to get it. After the non-Native Americans came, again, they came from all over the world, and you see places like Chinese Flat and things like that refer to the ethnic groups that came here. It wasn't just Europeans, it was folks from everywhere. And they just devastated the land. They dredged the waterways. Our creek that is forming the south end of the south border of our property line, our creek was heavily dredged. You can still find big cables planted in the ground that they used to anchor the dredges into the ground. You can see table mountains where they took hydraulic hoses and just blasted away the hillside with water and then panned out all that water to get the gold. That you can still see those scars today. There's hard rock mines here where they dug holes into the ground to find gold. Those hard rock mines created a lot of tailings, broken rock that they had no use for. So they just created piles of it everywhere. And this particular, our property, was covered with mine tailings, and then developers ultimately came and bulldozed it all into a nice flat area. So what we have is a flat piece of ground, but if you dig into the soil, it's not soil, it's devastated clay-based hardness. There's no life in the soil unless we do something to add it, and there's just tons of broken rock in there, broken rock that didn't belong there. It didn't come from here. You can tell the difference between the rock that came from the gold rush and rock that came naturally, because the rock that was here naturally is smooth river rock, and the broken rock came from the gold mines. Well, after the gold mines gave out, the people didn't just leave. Well, sure, a lot of them did, but then they started heavily logging the area and heavily ranching the area. So some of the hills, some of the places became work for lumberjacks, and they cut down all the natural mixed conifer forest that was here, and they replanted it with a monocrop, mostly ponderosa pine that's around here. There's some oaks, there's some cedar, but mostly it's ponderosa pine. And the ranchers came in, and to create areas for their cows and their sheep, it's all now non-native grasses in the area. In this particular area, before we started working on the land, it was all yellow star thistle, a very invasive plant. It's you don't want to walk through it. It makes you scratchy and rashy, and it's just awful. But that's what we have. After the ranching kind of slowed down and the lumber gave out, they started dividing up the land into small ranchos, and people like my wife and I bought them up to have little piece of heaven, right? Well, the problem became because of the non-native grasses and or I shouldn't say grasses, non-native brush and grasses and shrubs and small plants that were here. There's no soil, there's no microbial life in the soil. In the summer when it gets 105 degrees, the soil just bakes and is hard like a rock. And then the winter comes and the rains fall and the snow falls. There's no ability in that soil to hold that water that fell. So it runs off really quickly into the rivers and into the reservoirs and whatnot. And that leaves us very susceptible to fire. Now remember those loggers that cut down all the mixed conifer forest and replanted it with monocrops? That became very overgrown. The people in their little ranchos, like me, we love our privacy, Americans do. And we confuse our privacy and our overgrown fire hazard forest with healthy nature, and it's not that. It's a fire hazard. 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, a little pine tree to the north of us, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 miles as the crow flies, along the Stanislaus River Canyon. No, I'm sorry, along the Mokelumne River Canyon. A little pine tree touched a power line in September, the hottest, driest time of year here. And that touching of the power line let off some sparks, and a fire started in the river canyon. And my wife, I remember the day before the fire came through here, my wife kept calling me saying, "Mark," I was at work, "Mark, the fire is coming, the fire is coming." "No, it's not, Bev, it's going to go right up the river canyon. We don't have to worry about it." Well, I was wrong. The fire jumped the river canyon, and it jumped a couple watersheds, and it came straight for our house. It stopped about 150 yards, stopped right there. I can still see the bulldozer path where they stopped the fire, about 150 yards from our front door. The fire stopped. 70,000 acres this fire burned. And when I look back on it and I use Google Earth and things, I can see the areas that were ponderosa pine, monocrop, that all burned. The few areas that were still mixed conifer, it didn't burn. Go figure. What do you think caused that? Well, that fire came through and it took out over 500 houses, 70,000 acres. At the time, it was the third largest fire in the history of California. No longer is. There's been much, much, much more devastating fires with thousands of homes lost since then. But in our community, it was devastating. 2 people were killed in the fire. That was devastating enough. But all the people that lost everything, and the PTSD that comes with that was really horrible. Some of the folks had good fire insurance and they've been able to rebuild, but that was difficult because they had their fire insurance, but they didn't anticipate a huge wildfire coming through, burning everybody's houses up. And what that do to rebuilding costs, you know? It's the same number of contractors that are here. It's actually fewer because a lot of the contractors lost their homes and they left. So the cost of housing went way up, and it was just really difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people left. They took their insurance money, or not, if they didn't have it, if they were renters and didn't have it, and they just left because they had to. Some of the folks that didn't leave, there was a huge increase in suicide after the fire, in the years after the fire, because these people were already, you know, we all deal with our own demons, right? We all carry the load that we carry that other people don't know about. Well, they had that burden, and then they had the burden of not having anything anymore, and then they had the burden of winter. It's cold, and just trying to get by in the cold. And several of them killed themselves as a result. So the result of that fire is our community is devastated. Lots of people have rebuilt, but many more left. And that's hard on the schools. The schools are having a really hard time because of declining enrollment. There's much fewer kids than there were. Businesses are having a harder time because there's much fewer people to sell things to. And so they're struggling. So everybody now is struggling, where just a few years ago everything was going hunky-dory, life is good. What happened was we got used to hunky-dory, life is good, and we didn't take care of our land. We didn't take care of our land in a way that makes it resilient from fire. And that's where my project comes in. My project is going to be to create a website, create a series of videos that demonstrate how to take on projects to make your homestead more fire resistant. I'm focusing on permaculture. I'm focusing on growing your food. I'm focusing on growing healthy soil that will help prevent the fires, because there will be moisture in the soil and moisture in the plants. But breaking it down piece by piece, showing just how you can take steps to make your house, make your home more fire resistant, resilient to wildfires. And I'm going to do it in a way that anybody can do. I'm not Joe Handyman. I'm not good at building things and fixing things. It's just a skill set I don't have. I'm more than happy to hire a builder for everything that I need built, just because I'm not good at it, and other folks are. My day gig is I teach high school kids. Give me high school kids any day of the week and you can fix stuff, okay? So it's not going to be, here, let's build this. It's going to be other steps that are more kind of agricultural in sense. And those are going to go up once a month. There's already a number of them up on my website, mymountainranchgarden.com, and I'm adding to it each month. In a couple of months rather, I might switch up to twice a month, and ultimately it's going to be weekly. But by ultimately, I mean in a few years when I retire from my day gig and I have more time to do this. So the gist of it is to be an educational place for people to come and see, oh, if Mark can do that there, I'm pretty sure I can do it on my own land. And that's the goal anyway. I'm not trying to sell stuff. I'm not trying to make money from this. That's not what I'm doing. My day gig is taking care of me. I'm fine. I'm doing this just as an educational piece to help our community, because that's part of permaculture, right? People care and community care, and that's what I'm shooting for. I'm hoping to learn a lot. Well, no, not hoping. Hope isn't a good strategy. I'm going to be learning a lot. I've already learned a tremendous amount just in starting this project. So that's the project. Check it out. Again, mymountainranchgarden.com. From there you can see the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see the other social media platforms as I roll them out. So I'm going to go get working on the next video, and I'll see you at the next time I publish. In the meantime, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the community. Take care of the planet. See ya.